15 and a half minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Now, many of you probably know who Chris Hadfield is. He is a retired Canadian Air Force colonel and a Canadian astronaut as well. He's been on 3 space missions, one of them as commander of the International Space Station. Now, he has spent a lot of time writing since retiring. The CBC's Brittany Greenslade spoke with him about his book, Final Orbit.
All right, Commander Colonel Chris Hadfield, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Another best-selling book here, getting great reviews. I want to start with the beginning of it, where it really says that many of the people are real and much of this actually happened. So what are the challenges with trying to weave these real events with the imaginary and make it cohesive?
I love it when I'm reading a book and I can't tell what's made up and what's real, where it all just sort of seems like a completely real thing that might have happened. And I work really hard when I write my fiction books to build that entire bubble of disbelief. And I set this book in the summer of 1975 when there were an amazing number of kind of crazy world events going on. Cold War, end of the Nixon presidency coming apart, bombings all across the United States, race riots, the rise of the Chinese space program, and then this peaceful flight between the Soviets and the Americans to try and show that they could cooperate even in times of the Cold War. So to me, that gave me all these things to pull from, and then I could weave my complicated and little tension-filled plot in amongst all of that. But in the back of the book, I put an author's notes, so you can find out, oh, that was real, oh, that was real, that was a real person, I didn't know that. It makes it like a bunch of Easter eggs you discover while you read it.
I did take a look at the back of that because it was interesting to be able to see, oh, okay, and some of these people you actually knew. So did that make it difficult?
Yeah, I know most of people in the astronaut business. I got to know pretty much everybody who went to the moon. I'm of the right vintage to have met them at the end of their careers and the start of mine, and all the current astronauts. And I've flown 3 different spaceships myself and been to a couple space stations. And so I think it gives me a real lucky position to write these books because I don't have to phone people to check things. I'm lucky enough to either have done them myself or know the people that did them. And it's part of my objective in the book as well is to not just tell the story, but to give the reader a true visceral sense of what is it actually like to fly a rocket ship, to float weightless, to go around the world, to be outside on a spacewalk, to have things go terribly wrong when you're so far from home, and how do people actually react? And I've been through a lot of that, and so I do my best to bring that realism into the book.
I know one thing people really loved when you were in space, and I really loved, was how you brought us along for your journey up there. We saw you recording music, we saw you teaching science to students. Was it important for you to make that accessible, or why was it important?
Imagine if you had spent, what is it now, November, December, January, February, March, since May, if you'd been off the Earth. Ever since May. Think of all of the various things you've done since May. Imagine if you'd gone around the world 2,500 times. And then you got into your little spaceship and you came thundering back down through the atmosphere and banged into the ground and rolled to a stop, and you emerged out onto your sort of wobbly legs trying to keep your balance. What would you do with the experience? The lifetime of work that got you up there, and then the thousands of times around the world, and all the things that you learned and observed. What do you do with that personal experience? You could just keep it to yourself, or maybe just tell your family or your friends. But I was there, as a public servant, and I think there's a huge responsibility to try and not just share it, but share the ideas behind it, so that other people, without having to have the same experience, can maybe make different decisions with their lives, to see something that might be possible to them that otherwise they might not even have imagined. And so that's why I've done like a BBC series and a National Geographic series, and written 3 nonfiction books as well as 3 fiction books. It's why I teach at university. It's why I work with a bunch of space companies. I'm even on a current world speaking tour right now. And it's why I write fiction, because all of it allows people then deep insight into something that is almost impossible.
Almost impossible, but not. The CBC's Brittany Greenslade speaking with astronaut Chris Hadfield. He was in Winnipeg last night promoting his new book, Final Orbit. You can find an extended version of that conversation on your CBC Winnipeg News at 6. When you think of your morning drive or your transit ride into school or work, how busy is it? For many, we here at Information Radio are your morning commute companions, and we're spending more time with one another, according to stats. Tonight on CBC Marketplace, the team is asking who's got Canada's worst commute. They've dug into thousands of routes around the country over the past year, and Marketplace host Chris Glover joining us with more now. Good morning.
Good morning. How was your commute into work?
It was easy for me because when it's, early in the morning, not a lot of folks there. But you did put this call out as you tried to make the top 10 worst commutes by the numbers. This is a pretty ambitious thing. Why do this?
Yeah, the call out was great because we heard from more than 1,000 people across this country basically nominating themselves for the worst commute. And I wonder if people are listening along right now, they might think, oh, shoot, I wish I could have put my one forward because it is a rough one, or it's cold waiting out for that bus, or whatever the case may be. But we did certainly hear from drivers and transit riders across the country, including some from Winnipeg. Lovell Lai commutes from Regent Park to downtown Winnipeg along Concordia Ave and talks about how bottlenecked it is with too many cars and a poor road design. Poor road design is a complaint we got from a lot of people around the country. And interestingly, Bishop Grandin was the most mentioned road or offender with 28 mentions in all of our submissions. So something's going wrong on Bishop Grandin, I suppose. But there were definitely complaints across the country.
And so you got all these stories. What did you do with all of them?
We dug in a little deeper with some of them. We interviewed Michaela Helliwell, for example. Her submission jumped out right away, first of all, because it was hilariously written, but also because her commute is just so ugly. Get this, she travels 85 kilometers from her workplace to the west of Toronto, across the top of the city to a suburb in the east. And it's along the busiest highway in Canada, Ontario's Highway 401, which people who have visited Toronto will know that that's a 100-kilometer-an-hour highway, allegedly. Although it felt like it was kind of mocking us with that 100K sign.
Yeah.
As we came to a full and complete stop a couple times, Faith, during that drive home. She says that on Sundays with no traffic, it can take her 50 minutes, but with us, and on the average day, it takes a full hour longer, an hour and 50 minutes one way. So here is Michaela explaining why she thinks she has Canada's worst commute.
It's long and tedious, and it's getting worse. And gas prices going up, and it's just, I'm stuck in the car for 2 hours, but the 2 hours of sitting here stationary, I get out of the car and I feel like I'm in my 90s. Like I get out of the car and I'm so stiff and sore from just sitting here for 2 hours, not being able to get up and stretch.
Okay, so you said without traffic, 50 minutes. With traffic, an hour and 50.
Yeah.
What's the longest commute you've ever had on this route?
On this route, 4 hours.
4 hours?
4 hours. Once took me 4 hours to get home.
Did you like that shock in my voice? I could not believe when she said 4 hours one way. My gosh. But that was also a pretty extreme example, given the fact that apparently there was quite a big accident. But it still speaks to the kind of unpredictable nature of her commute. And in addition to these raw frustrations and stories, we also wanted to dig into the facts and find Canada's worst commute. So we linked up with several traffic experts to come up with a definition first, essentially comparing free flow traffic to how long it takes in rush hour, and the route with the biggest difference on average would become our worst commute. And we leaned on traffic expert Victor Couture and his team at a research lab in Toronto, who have for years been tracking thousands of routes from British Columbia to Nova Scotia and everywhere in between.
I mean, this sounds like a mammoth task. And you use his data to crown your winner, right?
Our winner or our loser, I guess, depending on your perspective. But yeah, we tapped into his data to develop our top 10. And here is Victor Couture walking through the top 5 and what they have in common.
You're going through extremely high population density area on roads that were designed to carry 50, 60 years ago, half of that kind of traffic. So they will be congested. And when you add these long commutes going through many exits, many interchange, many bottlenecks, some major construction projects, you get these frankly horrendous commutes.
All right, Winnipeg friends, put on your thinking cap. Is he describing your route or a route you've driven? You'll have to tune in tonight to watch Marketplace and see our top 10. But I can guarantee you that there are multiple Canadian cities and provinces represented in the top 10.
I want to say I'm excited, but I think worried is the better word to use. Okay, so
Confusion corner, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. Okay, so identifying the problem is a big deal, but a big part of the episode was also about finding solutions.
Yeah, and so for that part, we leaned on the expertise of civil engineer Beher Abdulhai. He said the number one best option is better public transit, get people out of cars in the first place. The second best option, he said, is artificial intelligence, so managing the demand. Things like lights on highway on-ramps to manage the flow during peak periods. And then the third option, he said, which is likely the most controversial for folks, congestion pricing. He says it is time for drivers to be charged a fee on key routes to reduce demand during peak periods. And he said, given where congestion is at already in some Canadian cities, that move is inevitable.
Okay, congestion pricing. Where have you seen this, and what were the results?
Just in January, it was actually set up in New York City in Lower Manhattan, a congestion relief zone, charging drivers $9 to go into that zone. And as a result, the city says 67,000 fewer vehicles are entering the zone. And on some of their busiest tunnels, they've seen 16% faster drives during the morning rush hour. And this is a kind of a hilarious stat, but interesting too. Honking and vehicle noise complaints to 311 in the zone, they have all declined by 45%. So far and wide kind of benefits. The revenue, also $500 million, is going towards improving public transit each year. And despite the benefits that we found there in New York City and elsewhere, in Canada, provincial governments would have to approve new highway charges. Ontario's transportation minister said absolutely no to congestion pricing. He says it's just not affordable for folks. And think beyond adding congestion pricing. In the past few years, premiers, not just in Ontario, but also in Nova Scotia and British Columbia, have in fact removed tolls.
So even with those changes, Chris, traffic congestion has continued to get worse. I know you and your team put that congestion to the test, comparing driving to other modes of transportation. Who won?
Yes, Marketplace's first ever cross-city race, a 10K sprint across the city. Asha Tomlinson was our driver. Rosa Marcatelli hopped on a bike on a chilly morning for us, and David Common was back in action. We sent him out on a boat on Lake Ontario, and I raced on public transit. We had camera operators with us on the ground in the vehicles and overhead as well on drones. So they were capturing our every move. It's visually quite appealing and stunning, I think, and we're very competitive people, so it's fun to watch. But also it's revealing in terms of the winner, who won, who lost, and by how much. Hopefully it'll spark a conversation there as well. Do you have a guess, Faith, in terms of who won this little race?
I mean, I would say you, but
yes.
Yeah.
Me, you're just placating the guy you have in front of me.
That may or may not be true. I can't confirm or deny.
Well, that was an excellent answer. Thank you very much. Your vote has been lodged, and tune in tonight to find out.
Chris, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's you can catch tonight's Marketplace episode, Canada's Worst Commute, tonight at 8 o'clock, or of course anytime on YouTube. And you heard Chris talk about congestion pricing. Would you pay $9 to travel on Abinogi-Mikina? Let us know at 2047-883205, 2047-883205, or radio 893 at cbc.ca. It is the middle of November. And any pharmacy, grocer, hardware store you go has seasonal goods available. Coca-Cola already advertising Christmas is coming in cinemas. Seems like the seasonal celebration shows up earlier and earlier every year. I know. My mom's Filipino. She has it up like in September. The CBC's Carsten Knox hit the streets to find out if people have given up on complaining about this, or is there even still resentment towards Christmas creep?
I am not a fan of Christmas creep. I think that Christmas should start in December. I don't put my tree up till December because I buy a real tree and I can't do that in November. I think there's constant pressure just to make everything materialized and the perfect Instagram moment and everything else. And I think the more that we lean into that, the sooner that Christmas starts. And I think Christmas is about my family being together and having time together to eat, to enjoy the things that we like, to take a break. And I just think we rush it.
And how do you, I guess, respond when you see it in stores and retail and in advertising in the middle of November?
I just walk on by.
We are just excited about the offers, like we are
like sales.
Discounts, yeah, sales. So just like more brands like Adidas and Nikes, and they are running online store sales like 30% off, 50% off. So we are just enjoying that.
Well, you see Halloween in August, right? So it's basically just a strategy for retailing. Not a bad strategy, but yeah, it is a bit over the top, I think.
And it gets earlier every year.
Yes, it does. Yeah, far too early.
Actually, we don't mind it. We're going to decorate this weekend. Yeah, we always do, around the 12th of November.
Why do you like to start at this time of year?
It's my mother's birthday who passed away, so we put it up now.
The way the economics is going right now, you got to make sure you save for December, which is we're now in November, so like it's not too soon. You just got to do what you got to do. The more important things is Christmas. It's once in a year.
Well, for me, I love it because like after Halloween, like, you know, like the day after October 31st, I'm looking forward to the holiday season and everything. So, you know, like seeing all the Christmas trees, the promotions and everything, it really like, you know, keeps me in the holiday spirit and everything. So I love it.
So it's not too soon?
No, never too soon for a holiday.
Yeah, it's creeping in more and more, even in the UK, so the lights go up. A lot of people don't even take them down nowadays. The shops is the worst thing, when they're bringing in Christmas deals and pushing it.
Does it make Christmas less special somehow?
For me, no, because I'm not affected by it, but I could see how it could make others feel like it's prolonged.
Costco's had their Christmas stuff right after Halloween, like the day after, so.
How do you feel about that?
It's a little intrusive, actually. Yeah, I don't enjoy the push and the marketing scheme. Yeah,
it's all about money. It just comes down to the fact that people want to sell Christmas presents, and they don't care about Remembrance Day or the people who died for their country, for their people. So to go from Remembrance Day and then the right next, now you're playing Christmas music, to me, that's ridiculous.
I love Christmas. You know what? The sooner we can get Christmas started, the happier I am. I really don't like Halloween, so I'm happy to get that out of the way. I'm just a big Christmas girl. I'm all for it. I think as soon as November hits, it's fine. That's where I stand on it.
Well, actually, I prefer it in December. Sometimes it is a little bit early-ish. And I think maybe that kind of wears on the holiday a bit, that it's more exciting if we kind of leave it until December.
Try saying that to my mom. It's not going to happen. The CBC's Carsten Knox speaking with folks about Christmas creep. The 112th Grey Cup is this Sunday, of course, outdoors here in Winnipeg. The Saskatchewan Roughriders taking on the Montreal Alouettes. On paper, a pretty even matchup, but odds makers are giving a slight edge to the team from the Prairies, our cousins, with the intense fans in green. For his thoughts on the Fall Classic of Canadian football, we've reached Greg Strong, sports reporter with the Canadian Press, who has covered many a Grey Cup. Good morning, Greg. Welcome back.
Good morning. Good to be on with you.
How do you think these teams stack up against each other?
Yeah, I mean, pretty even matchup. I'd say it's a coin flip. You've got two really strong defenses, both teams coming in hot after winning their respective division finals in dramatic fashion. Late fourth quarter wins on both sides. And yeah, as you say, I mean, the Rider Nation will be out in force for sure. I think it'll be more of a home field feel for Saskatchewan in this one.
And those players, who are you sort of watching for who make the difference in the matchup?
Well, the big storyline coming into this one is the status of Montreal quarterback Davis Alexander, who tweaked a nagging hamstring injury last weekend. And he says he'll be ready to go. He's been practicing this week. But the big question is, how effective will he be? Slated to be about -4 on Sunday night. And, a hamstring normally takes 4 to 6 weeks at least to properly heal. So that's a quick turnaround from last Saturday when he tweaked it. He says he'll be good to go, though. But to me, that's the storyline. I mean, Montreal is such a different team when he's not starting. He's undefeated as a starter with the Alouettes this season, 3-8. Montreal's record when he's not starting. So obviously 2 different teams. So it all depends on what level Alexander is able to perform at on Sunday night.
Blue Bombers fans are pretty devoted, and then there are Rough Riders fans. They're quite intense. What are you expecting in terms of the atmosphere on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it'll be an electric atmosphere. I mean, Winnipeg obviously is such a great CFL market. They love their Blue Bombers, but they love Canadian football. I remember covering the Grey Cup there. I think it was 2006, and just being blown away at the vibe and the atmosphere. And I would expect the same on Sunday when you have obviously 2 passionate fan bases in Montreal and in particular Saskatchewan, which I think is the most passionate in the entire league. A 5.5, 6 hour ride from Regina to Winnipeg. I would expect plenty of green and white in the stands on Sunday, and we'll see if that gives the Riders a boost in what should be a pretty tight matchup.
And it's the last Grey Cup before the CFL brings in some contested, some not rule changes. I'm choosing my words carefully here. What effect do you think they're supposed to have on the game? Remind us of those changes.
Yeah, it's a long list of changes, but just to kind of broad stroke it, the big one, the field dimensions will be changing over 2027. It's a 2-year phased-in approach for all of these changes, but the big ones are the field will be changing a little bit, not as long. The width will remain the same, but the end zones also not quite as long. The big thing is they're moving the goalposts from the goal line to the back of the end zone, and they're tweaking the rouge setup, which I know a lot of CFL purists bristled at when that was announced, but basically no longer awarding a single point on a missed field goal that goes through the end zone or a punt that goes through the end zone. And so you kind of won't have that situation where 2 teams are tied late in the fourth quarter and a rouge is the deciding factor in who wins, who loses. So certainly, mixed reaction, I think it's fair to say, when those changes were announced a few weeks back, but a 2-year phased-in approach, and the CFL hopes it leads to just a better brand of football and a more entertaining product.
The Grey Cup, do you think it's going to go to a Prairie team or the team over there?
I mean, it's tough to predict. I like the Riders, though, just given that Davis Alexander's not quite 100%, and that's such a huge factor for Montreal. If they can't get their offense going, I mean, I really like the Riders there. I mean, Trevor Harris, of course, quarterback for Saskatchewan, has 2 Grey Cup rings as a backup, but this would be his first as a starter, and I know he wants to kind of cement that legacy, obviously. I like the Riders, and I'll go 30-13 Saskatchewan. That's my pick.
Greg, thanks for this.
All right, thanks.
Greg Strong, supporter with the Canadian Press. And of course, the big game is at Princess Auto Stadium here in Winnipeg on Sunday. As people gather in our city for the Grey Cup, most are here to watch football, but some are here for more sinister purposes. There is a new campaign aimed to raise awareness about sexual exploitation of Indigenous women and girls during large-scale events. It's called Can You See Us? Exploitation is not a game. During this Grey Cup, Gaganawe Mananig, formerly the MMIW G2S Plus Implementation Committee, wants you to enjoy the game and festivities, but also to keep an eye out for others as well. They say sexual exploitation happens more often than you think at major events. This week, advocate Angela Lavallee spoke with Radio Noon guest host Laurie Hoogstraten.
So when we say exploitation, what kinds of things are we talking about?
We are talking about the power over the minds, bodies, and spirits of folks who are being pulled into sexual exploitation and human trafficking It is a difference from sex work and sexual exploitation, human trafficking, where sex is consensual. Sexual exploitation and human trafficking is not.
Today, a Winnipeg survivor shares her story. Brandy Blind spoke at the launch of the campaign last week, and Brandy joins us on the line now. Welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you.
I wonder, what were you thinking as you heard that that audio, that clip?
It just brings back a lot of my past, and just, allowing me to know that I was exploited at that time. And it just makes a lot of sense when you hear it from other people right at this current time. At that time, I didn't know I was being exploited. So there again, it comes with consent, right?
Brandy, take us back to the first time you experienced this. What was it like?
I was a child, actually. I wasn't even aware. Unfortunately, it was kind of normalized with some of the upbringing that I had kind of grown up with. I grew up in the inner city, so I had a lot of barriers, and this was something that I was groomed into, and I didn't even realize at that time.
And this happened at large events. Did you have any idea that what was actually happening?
I didn't realize what was happening at first. Unfortunately, a lot of times when I was exploited, I was being invited out to come and hang out, have fun. Then came liquor and drugs at that time. And I didn't even realize until it was kind of too late what was happening.
Brandy, what do you tell people about why victims are usually targeted at these large public events?
I think because, a lot of these are predators. They're good at what they do. They're our family members, our coworkers. We have no idea. They look like everybody else, unfortunately, right? So it's easy for them to, pick their victims. They see our young, vulnerable people. They see how easy it is to manipulate, to use those words to, it's a good thing at the beginning, you're groomed into it, you're promised certain things, these predators are nice to you, and you have no idea because they've done this, right? This is what they do. They look for vulnerable people to exploit.
And we have heard countless stories of how vulnerable Indigenous women are, and then you add add to the fact that they're young as well. What happens when you have that? Why are those sorts of folks more vulnerable?
I think because we're used. It's easier to use these words, to manipulate people. When you're at such a young age, you're trusting. You're easier to, kind of change that narrative and to, promise people, they spend money, hotels, food, gifts, shopping. So it kind of allows our young people to put those guards down, thinking that these are people who are being nice to them, not really realizing what they're doing.
Sounds like there were a whole bunch of red flags that you described there already. What other red flags do you recognize now that you didn't recognize back then?
Well, I didn't realize. I think the big age gap a lot of the times. When you have younger, young children, young teenagers, they shouldn't be in large groups of men. I think a lot of times it's an age gap,
Why did you decide to be part of this campaign, Brandy?
I think because it's taken me many years to actually see all the harm, and with healing, with support, and realizing it wasn't my fault. It wasn't okay what was happening to me. And it's not okay for this to go on, with our youth. there's a lot of trauma attached with this, and it takes a toll on people. And these are our children, these are our nieces, these are our neighbors, these are our grandchildren. Yeah.
What do you want people to keep in mind as we enter Grey Cup weekend?
Just to speak about what's going on. The more that we speak about this, our children, our youth, it educates them. It brings out conversations. It helps them become safer because they're having these conversations. It opens their eyes sometimes to this is what's going on and how to identify that or kind of protect themselves and keep them safe. It takes the blame off of blaming it on our kids, and it puts it out there, puts the blame on the adults and the systems that exploit them, unfortunately, right?
Brandy, thank you for making space to talk about this, and take good care.
Thank you so much.
Brandy Blind is a survivor of sexual exploitation. Now, if you or someone you know needs support, the National MMIWG hotline is 1-844-413-6649, 1-844-413-6649. You can find more information on this campaign that Brandy was talking about. Just look for Can You See Us? Exploitation is not a game. Again, that's Can You See Us? Exploitation is not a game. The performing arts scene here in Winnipeg is lively, but there was a time when that wasn't the case. COVID-19 left theaters empty and left many organizations in a precarious place. But they're getting back on track. Artistic director Kelly Thornton spoke on Information Radio about where the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre is right now.
We realized we'd lost about 3,000 subscribers, so it was a grim time. Obviously that's guaranteed income that we no longer could count on. I said, I think we need to actually grow our way out of this problem. We're going to face into the wind. And so we used our stabilization fund. We made decisions to do a planned deficit season to bounce back, to give the audiences what they know and love about MTC, which is big, bold theater on our stages.
So a grim time to now. Michael Blais is Executive Director of Manitoba Opera, joining us by Zoom. Welcome.
Hi, Faith. Good to be here.
What did you think as you heard Kelly describe what it was back then and where it headed to now?
Yeah, well, she's totally right. It was a bit of a grim time there, for Manitoba Opera when we emerged from the pandemic. If you think of just that 2-year period, we were at about 60% of our pre-pandemic audience base. So we had a lot of room that we needed to grow there over those years. I would say, in last year was the first year that we really saw signs of recovery. And we've got a much more robust response this year. So that's really great to see the community coming back and supporting the organization again.
The way that things have always worked is through subscribers. And I understand that both RMTC and the WSO seeing more single ticket sales. What do you make of that change in habits?
Yeah, well, I think that younger audiences are certainly buying later in the sales cycle than older audiences are. And I think that it's also just, the change in habits that people developed during those pandemic years. And so we are seeing that same thing as well. That there's more single ticket buyers and they're buying closer to the performance date. So it's just one of the emergent challenges that has come out of the pandemic for arts organizations.
Kelly talked about being bold. What's your version in Manitoba Opera of being bold to rebuild that audience?
Yeah, well, we saw when we emerged from the pandemic, we knew that we had to do something big to get people back. And so, we spent a lot of time internally kind of hashing out what some of the things that we could do. But one of the things that we've really done in the last year and a half is been investing in kind of modernizing our business practices. We were recipients of some funding from Prairie's Can, and we've been able to really kind of lean into our social media and our digital marketing, and that's been really, really successful. I was thinking about it the other day that funding was really the first time that we were the recipients of funding that was not related to the creation of art. It was about investment in our business, and that's a really exciting thing that we're seeing great results from.
And that investment, is the money coming from philanthropists? Is it coming from the public purse? How have you been able to manage all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, in the greater scheme of the organization, it's a combination of all of those things. That big investment that we had from Prairies Canada, of course, is a federal program, so that was public support there. And the investments in the arts are really important for the local economy, and so Manitoba Arts Council just came out with some data a few weeks ago. Where, for every dollar invested at Manitoba Arts Council, organizations that are the recipients of that funding are generating 10 more dollars and putting that back into the local economy. So that's a really wonderful thing to hear about that investment.
Who do you need to convince? Is it subscribers? Is it ticket buyers? Is it the government? Who are you targeting?
Oh, well, it's all of them, to be honest, and I think that's, when we look at the road ahead for the opera, it's certainly, if we stay on track with our current kind of sales targets, we're going to hit about 85% of our pre-pandemic numbers this year. So we expect to see kind of full recovery in the 26-27 season, which is really great to see. But we do need to see greater public support for the arts, and that investment is beyond economic impact. It's also about an investment in community well-being and personal well-being. A night at the opera or an afternoon at an art gallery or a museum is really food for the soul, and I think it's just really important to keep in mind that. The value of the art sector in that way for the community.
If you were to pick one word about this year's upcoming season, what word would you choose to describe either how you feel or what you're expecting?
Well, it's I'm going to go with busy. It's certainly been a busy season, but it's a really exciting one too. We're our interim artistic director, Larry DeRoche, who previously served as the general director and CEO, will be with us until May of this year. So we're undergoing a national search right now for a permanent artistic director, and I think that's just a really exciting element that's at play this season for the opera, because we just have to keep in mind all those new opportunities and new exciting things that new person will bring to the organization. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Michael, thank you for the time today, and take good care.
You too. Thank you, Faith. Bye-bye.
Michael Blais, Executive Director of Manitoba Opera. Now for the latest on our special report about sexual violence and the justice system. Next week, a specially appointed federal task force will release the results of their investigation into how the courts treat sex assault cases, and more specifically, the survivors at the heart of them. This week, we heard from local survivors who know only too well how traumatic it can be in their efforts to get justice in their cases. Today, a look at the legal obstacles that get in their way and what they think needs to be done about it. CBC producer Donna Carreiro has been looking into this issue, and she joins us in studio. Good morning, Donna.
Hi there, Faith. So let's start with what's at stake here. The survivors. The vast majority of sex assault survivors don't get their day in court. We heard about that the other day. Either the accused is acquitted or not charged in the first place. So where does that leave survivors like Jewel Pierre Roselli?
I know myself, and I know who I am. And I'm not a liar. I'm not out here saying that this person assaulted me for what? That person sexually assaulted me. That is what happened to me. He did that.
What's going wrong in this situation is this. First of all, survivors don't have any real say in how a case is going to proceed in court. The first time Jules Pierre Roselli, for example, heard from the Crown Attorney in her case was 5 months after she'd reported the assault, only to be told no charges would be laid. And then there's Isabel Daniels. She's also a survivor. Her case did go to court, but on the day she was scheduled to testify, she was told a deal had been struck and the accused got house arrest. Alexa Barkley is both a survivor and an advocate, and she puts it this way.
They really don't want to hear from you, generally speaking, which I know is a huge frustration for survivors. I mean, we are the ones that have been hurt. We have the greatest amount of skin in the game, quite frankly.
In a court proceeding, the victim is just one witness and is treated so accordingly. But the big issue is proving there was no consent. Here's Jules Pierre Roselli again.
The one question that, like, one of the officers asked was like, well, did you say no? And that just implies that the answer is always yes, otherwise, and that's wrong. And really, what are we asking? Like, did you say no? Well, did I say yes? No, I didn't. I didn't say yes, ever. So why did you ask that?
Donna, what are survivors supposed to make of that? What do advocates say about that?
Well, here's what Alexa Barkley's take is on it.
I think it's because the burden of proof is so high to actually convict somebody. So you need so much evidence about consent, and so they're looking for, easy ways to determine that. Well, did you say no? Well, then obviously if you said no, then you did not consent. But it's just, there's so many scenarios, especially when you slip into that survival mode.
Speaking of that survival mode, those scenarios can range from being too scared to actively fight off their assaulter because they don't want to escalate the situation, or sometimes they just freeze. They're actually unable to physically react. Sometimes they disassociate. All of this, though, Faith, is in an effort to survive it.
I hear that all the time from women who have been sexually assaulted, especially when it happens like date rape, right? And again, people do not understand what it's like to be a woman in a situation with a person that can overpower you. All these things go through your mind, and it's how do I stay alive? And that's what it comes down to.
So that was Isabel Daniels. Now, Karen Bellhumer, she refers to this as the fight, flight, or fawn scenario. She's a former Crown Attorney out of Ontario. She now works with sex assault victims. She says the courts just don't fully understand what the brain does during a traumatic event. And without that understanding, it can really be tough to prove in court what lack of consent looks like.
Donna, how can the justice system, as we know it, fix these issues?
Well, first of all, it's really important to note that these are not new issues. So earlier this week, I'd referred to some statistics that reveal the vast majority of sex assaults go unreported. And of those that are reported, the vast majority end up without convictions. This is nothing new. And the justice system has known this for decades. Back in 1991, the Supreme Court of Canada singled out sex assault cases as being particularly problematic. And I'm going to quote, "Sex assault is not like any other crime. It is for the most part unreported. The prosecution and conviction rates for sex assault are amongst the lowest for all violent crimes," end quote. The Supreme Court even then acknowledged the impact on the victims themselves. And I quote again, "Perhaps more than any other crime, the fear and constant reality of sexual assault affects how women conduct their lives and how they define their relationships with the larger society," end quote.
This was back in 1991.
Yep.
Here we are almost 35 years later.
Yep.
What have the courts done about it?
So a few things have changed, but importantly, they come with caveats. So let's start with this understanding of consent and what it looks like. In 2021, the Federal Department of Justice passed Bill C-3. So it means that any incoming judge in a provincial superior court must agree to participate in continuing education on matters related to sexual assault law and social context. And that includes the concept of what consent is and isn't. Here's the but. It's for incoming judges only, new ones. And that, says Alexa Barkley, is already proving to be problematic.
But judges who have been practicing already are not required to take that training. It's only new judges. So we're sort of dealing with an uninformed group of people who are making decisions on sexual assault cases that they really have no business making, quite frankly.
What does she mean by that?
Well, it turns out last year, for example, an Ontario Court of Appeal determined that criminal trials don't need expert evidence explaining the neurobiology of trauma because judges and jurors already understand that so-called failure to resist concept that's often wrongly interpreted as consenting. But advocates say recent trial outcomes suggest some judges still don't get that. In one case, the trial judge didn't buy the victim's explanation of why she'd acquiesced to the assault.
Whereas, I'm sitting in the courtroom with a bunch of survivors and survivors advocates, and we're all like, yes, that's exactly what happens. You do that to survive, and she didn't understand it.
What about closer to home, Donna? What is the legal landscape here?
So, as you know, we heard from 2 Crown attorneys from Manitoba Justice who talked us through the legal challenges yesterday. So first and foremost, there's the non-negotiable. This won't ever change. Some cases just won't make it to court. The victim's telling the truth, but it's not enough to proceed with charges. Chantal Boutin puts it this way.
In order for a case to proceed, of course, we have to ensure that there's a public interest. There almost always is in cases of sexual violence, but also that there is a reasonable likelihood of conviction. And that is the particular aspect that can lead to a matter not proceeding. And that's in light of all the evidence that's available, an assessment of all of that evidence.
So what has changed then?
So training, for starters. Any Crown attorneys who want to work with sex assault cases now have access to sex assault training and a community of experts who can help inform them. And as for the victims themselves, Manitoba Justice offers the option of what they call testimonial aid. So here's how that works. If a victim's under 18, the courts will automatically provide someone, either from community or otherwise, to be with them during testimony. But here's the but. It's automatic, as I said, for those under 18. For adults, the Crown has to request one.
What about other changes that have been made locally?
Remote testimony. So just this year, in fact, the Crown appealed an acquittal of a sex assault where the survivor hadn't been permitted to testify remotely. So they won that appeal, and a new trial has been ordered, and the victim will get to testify from away. This can be important for survivors outside the courts, perhaps, where they can remain within their support network and testify without prejudice.
Speaking of survivors, Donna, are there any other supports being put in place for them?
So here's one big change that advocates are calling for, and most provinces aren't yet on board. It's the idea that sex assault survivors themselves have legal representation in court, just like the accused.
What do you mean?
So Karen Bell-Humer, again, she's leading the advocacy on this. She's the former Crown attorney out of Ontario, so she envisions a system where as soon as a survivor presents to authorities, they're offered free legal counsel, a lawyer.
How come?
So they can have a legal advocate who has their back. Now, remember, Crown attorneys are not the victim's lawyers. The victim is one witness in the Crown's case, so they're not privy to any of the behind-the-scenes activity in the case. A lawyer of their own could, at the very least, talk them through the process. But more importantly, Karen Bell-Humer says a lawyer could protect them.
Talk more about that, protect them. What does she mean?
Okay, so for example, as she explains it, anything the victim tells the police or the Crown must be disclosed to the defense. There's no confidentiality in relationship with either, right? Their lawyer might protect them from that. Here's an example she cited. So say a survivor tells police that the PTSD they've suffered since the assault, it's not, for a variety of reasons, evidence that the Crown can necessarily use to prove the assault occurred. But Karen Bell-Humer says it would be available for the defense, and the defense could then turn around and use it in a way to undermine the complainant's credibility. Her lawyer could perhaps guard her against that.
What's been the reaction to this idea?
Depends on whom you ask. Advocates like the idea, defense lawyers are not so much. Next week, the Federal Ombudsman for Victims of Crime is releasing their special report on how the justice system handles sex assault cases. With it will come recommendations on what needs to change. We'll see if this is one of their recommendations.
And Alexa Barkley lent her voice to the task force's research on that report, didn't she?
That's right, and that's why she and Karen Bell-Humer will be watching for those recommendations. In the meantime, Alexa has this message to deliver to other survivors like Isabel Daniels and Jewel Pierre Roselli.
So first, I'm just so sorry for what you've experienced. the system is not built for us. Yeah, so I think those are my big two messages. You're not alone. It's not your fault. Yeah, and the system is super broken.
Thanks for this, Donna.
You're very welcome, Faith. And I really just want to thank all of the survivors who shared their truths with us. Isabel Daniels, Jules Pierre Roselli, Alexa Barkley, others who weren't ready to go on camera with their stories. We can't tell the stories without their truths.
Really appreciate your work on this. Take good care. Donna Carreiro, producer with CBC Manitoba. For more on this special report, you can visit our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Now, we cover a lot of issues on this show and on all of our radio shows, whether it's politics, healthcare, crime, even some of the more complicated and divisive social issues of our time. But have you ever listened to one of our interviews or read one of our articles, watched one of our stories, and have feedback, maybe even criticism of our journalism? CBC Manitoba wants to hear from you. We are accepting applications for our CBC Manitoba Community Advisory Board. The deadline right around the corner. Nadia Kidwai is the senior producer of Community Connection, also host of the Weekend Morning Show. Hello.
Hi, Faith.
We've swapped roles.
Confusing all the audiences.
It's very confusing. Okay, we got to talk about the Community Advisory Board. What is it?
So this is a board that's made up of just regular Manitobans from across the province, but we are specifically looking for communities that we want to better reflect and represent in our journalism. So communities from different locations across the province, different political viewpoints, different cultural communities. And the whole goal of this Community Advisory Board is to improve our journalism, right? So they don't have any editorial control, but they are so valuable in providing feedback when it comes to a perspective we may have missed in our story, or a voice we should have included, or an angle that would have really elevated the story. So this is an opportunity for anyone listening who cares about journalism and perhaps is frustrated that their community is not represented the way it should be. It's such a valuable and important tool for us to help us do a better job of reflecting all Manitobans and their viewpoints, which is our mandate.
I've often heard in the public, why didn't you do this story, or why'd you do it that way? And I often say, I can't read your mind. Tell us about it. I'm sure you've had experiences like that.
Yeah, and it's not a small thing for someone who feels dismissed or even demonized, but still has the wherewithal and the generosity of spirit to come and share their feedback with you. That is like gold, and we so appreciate it. So this Community Advisory Board is really an opportunity for you to do that.
What's the time commitment?
Great question. So it's a 2-year term, but we try and configure the meetings so it's very flexible. So all our meetings are virtual. We meet only 6 times a year, usually over the lunch hour on a Wednesday. Virtual because we have members from all across the province and we recognize people are usually at work. So it's 6 meetings a year, virtual. You are reimbursed for your time, $75 per meeting. We try and do one in-person meeting so people can meet each other, and we invite them down to CBC. But we really do try and make it as flexible as possible for people to commit.
So here is your chance, because I know people have said, why aren't you doing this, or why did you do it this way? How do folks apply?
So the deadline to apply is next Thursday, November 20th at midnight. There's more information about all of this, and the application is online on our website. That's cbc.ca/Manitoba/community. And this is really for people who are engaged, who are opinionated, but who are really open-minded, because Manitoba is made up of multiple communities with multiple viewpoints. We don't all have to agree. In fact, it's a blessing and a privilege to be able to disagree, but we do it respectfully. So open-mindedness is really a quality that we are screening for. But I really encourage people to apply. We're living in such a polarized, divisive time. This Community Advisory Board is a space where we can have respectful disagreement and really fulfilling dialogue.
Nadia, thanks for this.
Thanks, Faith.
Nadia Kidwai, our senior producer of Community Connection, cbc.ca/Manitoba/community. Well, contentious question for you book lovers. Do you dog-ear the pages? Fold the corner of a page, leaving a mark, a reminder to mark that moment. The brothers Landreth's new album is all about that. Their album Dog Ear officially comes out today. They are live in Studio 11. If you're on YouTube, or if you have YouTube, you can tune into our page there, to our account there, CBC Manitoba. You can see us stream several performances. So let's throw now to Studio 11. Here's the brothers Landreth with Dog Ear.
Big ocean swells come to swallow you whole. You need a life raft, you water does rise and it comes down again, I'll be the shore, my friend. Where the shades are drawn and the walls are closing in, when you're holding on, but you're starting to bend. When you know to leave, but you're just not sure when, I'll be the door, my friend. I'll be the door, my friend. Evergreen, whatever that means, I will always be your evergreen. Evergreen. Holy, humble, wicked, wise, nothing lasts forever, but everything tries. If you get lost in your story again, I'll be the dog ear, my friend. Evergreen, whatever that means, I will always be your evergreen, whatever that means, I will always be your
Title track from their new album, Dog Ear, the brothers Landreth. Live in Studio 11, we have Joey, Dave, and Roman Clarke. Welcome. Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Faith. It's nice to see all you three in person in real life. Dave, let's talk about Dog Ear here. What's the story of the Lightship?
So the Lightship, we borrowed that. There's a book I was reading with my son Finn called The Lightship, and it's about these old boats that used to go and sit in the harbor in places where it wasn't safe to build. What are those things called?
Lighthouses.
Lighthouses. Thank you.
Great.
And they would go and they would set sail in the middle of the harbor, drop an anchor, and they would stay out there for months at a time. And their only job was to just be a landmark for the ships coming in. So they had foghorns and big bright lights, and they would guide all the ships in. And that imagery wound up being a big part of writing this album, that idea of just being a consistent, stable force in the lives of the people you love, and thinking about the people that are that for you. And then the dog ear is also, the title of the track, Dog Ear, is also kind of a bit of a metaphor for that as well.
Was it easy to choose Dog Ear to turn that idea into music?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty good at sort of stepping into our feelings and playing from the heart. So, it came across pretty quickly.
You are performing another song, which is also on this album, Vincent. What's it about?
Vincent is a story we wrote, and it's a made-up character. So Vincent's not a real person. We've changed the names to protect the innocent. But this character is kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different people that have come through our lives over the years, folks that you love dearly and are maybe struggling to move on. They're stuck in a rut, and it kind of talks about how when you're young, that's really appealing. There's something really exciting about that kind of energy, and as you get older, it gets a little harder to wear as well, and sort of wrestling with loving somebody and also recognizing that you got to let them go.
Live here in Studio 11 at 23 and a half minutes after 8, here's the brothers Landreth with Vincent.
saw a plastic flower on the ground today, and I wondered why it had blown my way. Felt like it had more to say, frozen in its perfect way. It reminded me of you, and the way time moves right through you without doing nothing to you. Oh Vincent, when you call me in the morning, I hear the nighttime on you, and I'll stay here on the phone so you don't have to be alone if you don't want. In the streetlight on the corner where we first met, you were laughing like a banshee bumming cigarettes. I'll always have a light for you like I did then. Tell me, how'd you make it feel like that? Like it all just moved right through you without doing nothing to you. Oh Vincent, when you call me in the morning, hear the nighttime on you, and I'll stay here on the phone so you don't have to be alone if you don't want to. The way I care for you, it scares you, yes I know. Your phone's dying, so you got to let me go. And I'm dying, trying not to let you know that I'm dying, trying not to let you go. Oh Vincent, oh Vincent, oh Vincent, yeah, I'm dying, trying not to let you go. Oh Vincent, yeah, I'm dying, trying not to let you go.
Live from Studio 11, that is the Brothers Landreth with Vincent. Time's going by so fast. Thank you for the three of you for coming in studio. I know you have one more song to play for us. Quick one-sentence explanation. What is Half Moon Eyes about?
About my daughter, my youngest daughter.
That's a perfect. I love that.
Sorry, should I give you more?
No, it's perfect.
You were looking for a fast answer. You got it.
I love that answer. We're at 26 and a half minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Thanks again for coming. Again, live from Studio 11, the Brothers Landreth with Half Moon Eyes.
You and your half moon eyes lying in my arms tonight. No lightning, no thunder could ever steal your wonder. Yeah, you and your half moon eyes. You and your starlight smile, wide as the river Nile, like no earthly treasure, it shines on forever. You and your starlight smile. I'd rather have a heart of broken glass than one made out of stone. And I'd rather pick the pieces off the ground than always have to roll. rather pick the pieces off the ground than always have to roll.
Live from Studio 11, that is the brothers Landreth with Joey and Dave Landreth and Roman Clarke. Their newest album, Dog Ear, is out today.